So Cathy Engelbert, the Dan Patrick staff, booked her, and she bailed. And apparently, I didn't see it, but was, 100 yards off just playing golf.
Just 100 yards off playing. It was closer than that, Colin.
Start fast, the commissioner of a major professional sports league, actively dodging a Hall of Fame broadcaster to hit wedge shots on a golf course. That is not just a scheduling conflict, and it is not a simple miscommunication. That is a white flag being waved on national television. Right now, the WNBA is experiencing a financial and cultural earthquake, the kind of monumental shift that business schools will be writing case studies about for the next 2 decades. Yet the person who is supposed to be steering this massive ship has seemingly abandoned the wheel at the exact moment the waters got rough. When you step back and look at the optics of a commissioner hiding 100 yards away on a driving range, rather than answering questions about the very product she is paid to protect, you realize we are watching a masterclass in catastrophic public relations. But the part that should actually bother you comes later in this breakdown, when you realize why she really ran and what it means for the multi-billion-dollar future of this league. This isn't just about a missed interview. It is about a fundamental inability to handle the spotlight.
This ain't going away, Cathy. Colin Cowherd got in on it, talking about how egregious it is that the WNBA commissioner dodged Dan Patrick. Well, congratulations. Cowherd's got the biggest radio show in the country.
When Colin Cowherd and Dan Patrick are dedicating prime national radio segments to WNBA front office drama, you know the paradigm has permanently shifted. For a quarter of a century, the WNBA operated in relative obscurity. They had a dedicated but small fan base, and they rarely moved the needle in mainstream sports debates. Because of that, they didn't have to face the music. Frankly, the Tier 1 sports media wasn't playing their song. Now they have the biggest megaphones in the entire country pointed directly at their front door. The Caitlin Clark effect didn't just bring in unprecedented television ratings, sold-out arenas, and merchandise shortages. It brought the intense, unblinking, and utterly ruthless spotlight of real sports journalism. When you sit in the big chair of a major league, you answer the big questions. You do not send your PR team to play interference or draft up sanitized press releases that say absolutely nothing. The reality is that the WNBA spent years practically begging for relevance, asking to be treated with the exact same critical eye as the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball. Well, congratulations, you got exactly what you asked for. But the moment the real media arrived to do their jobs, the league's leadership completely folded under the weight of the moment.
Cathy Engelbert has been taking shrapnel now for a good, about 13 days past the ground zero event known as Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark, the fist to the throat, the stomp that we don't talk about enough in all of that, and of course the knee to the nether region down there.
This is ground zero of the current crisis, and it is entirely self-inflicted by a lack of institutional control. The product on the floor has aggressively crossed the line from hard-nosed, physical basketball into what looks, to millions of casual new viewers, like targeted, unchecked hostility. We are not talking about standard basketball plays or incidental contact in the paint. We are talking about plays that transcend typical hard fouls, a fist to the throat, a deliberate stomp that the broadcast barely wanted to acknowledge, a calculated knee to the midsection of the league's most marketable asset. When these types of incidents happen in the NFL or the NBA, the league office doesn't wait 2 weeks to figure out a narrative. They issue a statement immediately. They hand down a suspension. The commissioner steps to a podium to calm the waters and draw a definitive line in the sand. Cathy Engelbert's strategy, however, has been a deafening, cowardly silence. By refusing to establish boundaries and enforce basic professional conduct, she has allowed a toxic narrative to fester. The public perception right now is that the league is entirely out of control, operating like the Wild West, and that its most valuable player is being left to fend for herself while the executives look the other way. This isn't just about protecting a single rookie. It is about protecting the integrity and the financial viability of the entire shield.
Hey, now, all of us in this business have people bail on us. I've lost people, some people get busy, they forget whatever, or they just don't want to do it. Commissioners should not bail on scheduled interviews.
Ever. And you should never blame your PR department because you are their...
Accountability in professional sports flows strictly upward. You are the boss. If the public relations department advises you to skip an interview because the questions might be uncomfortable, your job as commissioner is to overrule them immediately. Dan Patrick is not an ambush journalist lurking in the bushes. He is a respected, straightforward professional who has been operating at the highest level of this industry for over 3 decades. He asks the questions his massive audience demands to hear. Backing out of a scheduled appearance with him at the 11th hour isn't just a minor faux pas, it broadcasts pure fear. It sends a message to every sponsor, every television network executive, and every newly minted fan that the leadership of this league is severely out of its depth. When the National Football League faces a massive crisis, whether it is a lockout, a high-profile player conduct scandal, or a controversial officiating blunder on a playoff stage, Roger Goodell doesn't hide. He stands in front of the cameras, takes the absolute barrage of criticism, and absorbs the public anger so that the shield stays protected. Cathy Engelbert is executing the exact opposite playbook. She is letting the brand take all the damage while she literally works on her short game. It is a stunning dereliction of executive duty.
That would add to it. So Dan Patrick went on the air, and he was very upset about it.
We're just trying to be a journalist here. That's all. We're just trying to ask questions. But don't say yes, and then all of a sudden somebody probably said, in my opinion, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Well, at some point, you have to do this. This is an important league. There's expansion. There's conversation. It's been agendaized. Everybody has something to say about it.
Maybe we shouldn't do this. That is the sound of a corporate front office actively hitting the panic button when the lights get too bright. And it exposes a fundamental, staggering misunderstanding of how hypergrowth works in the modern sports entertainment business. You cannot happily deposit the massive checks from explosive television ratings, sign lucrative new broadcast deals, and then simultaneously demand to be treated with kid gloves by the press. When you have massive television networks paying millions of dollars to broadcast your games, those networks expect a level of professionalism that goes beyond ignoring calendar invites. Dan Patrick isn't just a guy with a microphone. He represents the very audience the WNBA needs to capture if they want to survive this expansion phase. The WNBA has been asking for a legitimate seat at the table with the Big Four sports leagues since 1997. Well, this is the table. And at this table, when a player gets targeted with borderline assault on national television and the entire internet is debating it, the commissioner has an absolute obligation to answer for it. You can't just release a generic corporate word salad statement and pray the news cycle moves on to something else. The modern sports media ecosystem is built entirely on debate, controversy, and accountability. By refusing to engage in that ecosystem, Engelbert didn't kill the story. She poured gasoline on it and became the story herself. She turned a debate about player conduct into a massive
Since Caitlin Clark has arrived, the WNBA has exploded. They're now flying private. They've introduced 3 new teams. The Golden State Valkyries have $1 billion valuation. They're drawing like 20,000 a night. The Portland Fire, home run. Toronto Tempo, home run. You got 3 new franchises. That takes a lot of work. You have a superstar in the league. That takes...
Let's put this incredible growth into concrete perspective, because the numbers are staggering and they highlight exactly what is at risk here. We are looking at a league that just recently introduced charter flights for its players, a monumental logistical and financial leap that they spent years claiming was impossible. Expansion franchises are currently being minted with valuations reportedly brushing up against the billion-dollar mark. The Golden State Valkyries are coming in with massive hype and deep pockets. Portland and Toronto have been greenlit, bringing international and passionate new markets into the fold. You have regular season games pulling 20,000 screaming fans into massive NBA-sized arenas night after night. This is unprecedented corporate momentum. But hypergrowth is a wildly dangerous beast if you don't have the right jockey on the horse. When a company scales this fast, the internal infrastructure almost always breaks under the weight of its own sudden success. The WNBA's leadership is clearly still operating on a localized mom-and-pop scale, while the actual business has gone global almost overnight. They are trying to manage a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon with the crisis communication skills of a small-town city council. The product outgrew the executives, and the cracks in the foundation are showing every single day.
Very strong growth, and I think all of it is, it's a little too much for them to handle. It's like any business listening. Anybody listening to me that owns a business is that part of the problem of hyper growth as a business, any business, is just getting your damn arms around it. And they have stepped in it so many times.
Every business owner watching this right now understands the absolute terror of hypergrowth. You work tirelessly for a breakthrough, you finally get exactly what you wished for, and suddenly the machinery starts shaking violently apart. The WNBA is drawing more eyeballs right now than it has in its entire existence. As Cowherd noted, they are occasionally beating the National Hockey League in television ratings. Stop and really think about the gravity of that for a second. The NHL is a legacy Big Four sport with a century of entrenched, die-hard fandom, and a women's basketball rookie is outselling their biggest veteran stars in merchandise and moving the Nielsen needle right past them. But with that massive newfound market share comes massive, unforgiving scrutiny. If a local diner burns the toast, nobody cares and life goes on. If a 3-star Michelin establishment burns the toast, it's on the front page of culinary magazines and the chef's reputation takes a massive hit. The WNBA is finally a Michelin star property. They have the ratings, the money, and the global attention. But the commissioner is still acting like nobody is sitting in the dining room, hoping the critics just magically go away.
Nobody cares. That's the downside to popularity. It is a privilege to be criticized. It is a privilege to deal with pressure. And I'm just thinking about it this weekend. I'm like, God, they keep stepping in it. It's not like they're a bunch of dummies. I think they have such hyper growth, they can't get their arms around it.
It is an absolute privilege to be criticized. That might be the single most profound and misunderstood truth in the sports media landscape. Irrelevance is the real enemy, not criticism. For 25 years, the worst thing about the WNBA wasn't the play on the court, the shooting percentages, or the travel accommodations. It was the crippling apathy off the court. Millions of people simply did not care enough to even get mad. Now you have fiery debates raging in barbershops, on sports talk radio stations from coast to coast, and across every single social media platform. That friction is the very engine of the multi-billion-dollar sports economy. When fans are arguing passionately about physicality, refereeing discrepancies, and front office competence, it means they are heavily invested. But Engelbert's administration seems completely terrified of this friction. Instead of leaning into the drama, capitalizing on the storylines, and managing it like a seasoned, confident executive, they are trying to sanitize it, ignore it, or quite literally run away from it on a golf course. This is a crucial do-or-die inflection point. If you do not take firm control of the narrative during a massive boom period, the audience will eventually decide you aren't a serious league, and that unprecedented money will evaporate just as quickly as it arrived.
Disaster. She still hasn't came out and made any comments. She hasn't addressed the Dan Patrick thing. She didn't address the Alyssa Thomas thing. You know, there was a whole thing about Alyssa Thomas hadn't heard from the commissioner. No, she had, but we haven't heard Cathy Engelbert respond to the fact that Alyssa Thomas went out there and lied and told everybody she hadn't heard from the commissioner. Commissioner office was like, no, she has. We reached out directly.
This specific incident regarding communication is the canary in the coal mine for a total institutional breakdown. When you have a star player like Alyssa Thomas going out to the media and allegedly lying, or at best, wildly misrepresenting, whether the commissioner's office actually reached out to them regarding an escalating situation, you have a complete collapse of internal respect. The players clearly do not fear the commissioner. They do not respect the authority of the front office. And honestly, why should they? When Engelbert allows players to operate unchecked on the court with borderline violent fouls, and then visibly hides from the media off the court, she sets a glaring precedent of weakness. In any successful, highly profitable sports league, there is a natural, necessary, and healthy tension between labor and management. The commissioner works for the billionaire owners, yes, but they absolutely must project undeniable, ironclad authority over the players to maintain order and protect the product. Right now, the inmates are running the asylum. The players dictate the narratives, the media dictates the pressure, and the warden is out hitting practice shots on the back nine, hoping it all just blows over.
Like, right, can you imagine a player trying to run over Roger Goodell? That's not going to happen in the NFL. It's not going to happen in baseball or the NBA or what. No. I mean, the buck stops. Adam Silver can be a weakling at times, depending on who. I mean, like if it's LeBron, yeah, he ain't got a chance. But some other player, yeah, he'll flex on him.
Could you imagine, for even a fraction of a second, a defensive tackle in the NFL clotheslining a rookie quarterback well after the whistle, and then Roger Goodell simply refusing to answer questions about it? It is completely unthinkable. The NFL machine would have massive fines levied, multi-game suspensions mandated, and a primetime press conference scheduled before the sun even went down. Even Adam Silver, who is widely regarded across the industry as the most player-friendly commissioner in professional sports, knows exactly when to drop the hammer. When a star player crosses the line, Silver doesn't dodge reporters or send out a vague tweet. He goes on national television, expresses his profound disappointment, and hands down a decisive, undeniable suspension. That is what actual leadership looks like. It is deeply uncomfortable, it is often contentious, and it is absolutely required if you want to be taken seriously as a global brand. The WNBA desperately needs an Adam Silver or a Roger Goodell right now.
Cathy Engelbert, she letting everybody run over. It was a terrible look for her to stand up Dan Patrick, because that's one of the most respected guys in all of sports for 35 years that does not have an agenda and just wants to ask straight, pointed questions. And you screwed him.
Standing up a universally respected broadcasting legend like Dan Patrick isn't just a localized PR blunder. It is a blaring, flashing declaration of incompetence to the entire sports world. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the current WNBA Commissioner's office is fundamentally unequipped to handle the very success they spent decades begging the public to give them. The Caitlin Clark era has handed this league the ultimate golden ticket. They have the astronomical ratings, they have the massive expansion money rolling in, and they have the cultural relevance that money literally cannot buy. But you absolutely cannot fly in private jets, cash billion-dollar franchise valuation checks, and demand equal respect while simultaneously operating with a scared minor league mentality. The spotlight is permanently here. The tough, uncomfortable questions are not going anywhere, and the grace period for amateur hour in the front office has officially expired. The only real question left is whether Cathy Engelbert is going to finally step up to the microphone, take the heat, and actually lead, or if she's going to keep hiding in the bunker while the greatest financial opportunity in the history of women's sports slips right through her fingers due to sheer cowardice. Will the owners finally step in and demand executive accountability, or will they sit back and watch their billion-dollar investment bleed its momentum? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that subscribe button if you want the unfiltered truth, and we will see you in the next breakdown.